This is a key statement released in CIG's 2023 financial report. It reads, "Hitherto, it was all too easy to divert resources earmarked for Squadron onto Star Citizen to tackle live issues raised by customers and community. But this was at the expense of the Squadron development plan. So although an expensive commitment, the decision was taken to devote these planned and required resources to Squadron 42 in the interests of making solid progress towards our ultimate goals." This is CIG's open secret. The game development players are currently primarily funding is Squadron 42, not Star Citizen. And I call this an open secret because, well, it's not a secret if you're paying attention. It's gotten pretty obvious this year. But I still see plenty of folks who simply don't know there's another game that is currently actually their priority. While Squadron was declared feature complete back in 2023, and developers were expected to begin shifting back to Star Citizen with optimizations and long-awaited features, the reality is looking a little bit different. 2025 was labeled as the year of playability, performance, stability, and content. And here's the catch. Star Citizen does perform better than it used to. New content is being delivered every month, and the company is having its best funding year ever, on track to earn over $120 million. But with major features stalled for most of the year and CIG repeatedly stating that Squadron 42 is still the focus, many players feel Star Citizen is making minimal progress. Today we're going to talk about playability, this open secret, how it makes Star Citizen feel like a trudge through the deep end, and why 2025 is still somehow a record-setting year for the game. Thank you for coming to My Tomato Talk. "2025 opened with a promise, improving playability. From CIG's perspective, this meant improving performance, raising the client and server-side FPS, improving CPU and GPU usage, and releasing consistently performant updates. Stability, which meant less game crashes, better AI reactions, and less critical bugs. And then content, which means ships. It also means regular additions of gameplay into the game. This was a way for CIG to sympathize with the players, show understanding for the average gamer's plight, and hone in on the real problem that Star Citizen has always had. It has never really played like a full game. 8 months into this playability push, these things have happened to varying degrees. We've seen updates so far with 3 major patches pushing entirely different narrative-driven content, generally focused around specific locations. Across these updates, we've seen multitudes of new PvE-focused contracts, mainly across the combat professions, but also including maintenance, some collection missions, and fauna hunting. A new form of progression was introduced into the game in Wicklow, which drives engagement and offers something other than just earning money to buy more ships. New armors, new weapons, and exoskeleton suits have been added throughout the year. An update to mining across all mediums was made, improved physics detections between objects was added, radiation-based gameplay, a temporary item recovery system, voice-acted contracts, new enemy types, and improved stability regarding crashes on the client and the server side. But many of these additions did not come without their own problems. Wicklow has been a constant learning process and a source of lost time for many. Frame rates have definitely improved over the last 9 months, but the true improvements are up and down between updates. The sandbox activities have truly suffered from missing features like reputation, security, and proper social tools that would have made them much better in delivery. And the big Race for Stanton event, the first major reward-rich in-game event, launched broken. It's not all bad, and it's not all good, but with the lack of major features showing up in testing in the first 3 quarters of the year, things like engineering, scanning and radar, hacking, and an updated flight model, the focus on Squadron 42 rings more clear than ever. But just in case you needed it to be more clear, here it is on camera.
So those are in lower levels of development right now while those people are focused on closing out Squadron 42 and fixing the things in the PU we'd rather have them fixing right now.
Or here talking about how weapons eventually come to Star Citizen.
The FPS weapons, the Volt weapons, which we talked about for a while, are finally making their journey from Squadron to the PU.
And the most clear explanation, feature teams are focused on Squadron.
You know, at the beginning of this year, we had Benoit on and talked about the big change in focus of this year. This year's focus for feature teams is on closing Squadron 42 out and improving stability and performance without introducing the stability and hits that come with new features.
And actually just a couple days ago, as I was finalizing this video.
As everybody knows from our statement at the beginning of this year, certainly not all, it's been kind of exaggerated, but a bunch of our engineers and programmers and stuff are on Squadron, closing that out.
Yes, the goal was to make Star Citizen playable, with better stability and performance. But the most important thing to CIG right now, the clear target to hit, the ultimate goal, is Squadron 42. It's not a coincidence that the instability creating features are being held off on in the same year that Squadron 42 needs to be polished and ready to go when it comes to features. Any problem that crops up in that game needs immediate hands on deck for those features. Therefore, Star Citizen will not. It's an open secret. It's been stated multiple times by different people, and even following the ships and features that do enter Star Citizen makes it pretty clear that's where the majority of work is going. Now, CTO Benoit Bouzejour spoke towards the beginning of this year of flex that they need to have between teams.
And so the thing that if Jens was here with me, he would say the thing we need is flex, right? And so flex is when we need reinforcements, we can get them. There are a series of engineers that will work, dedicated to Squadron, but we can flex on both sides depending, right, on the milestones.
But ultimately, the priority is Squadron 42. And while Star Citizen continues to improve as well, it's still missing feature deliveries from CitizenCon 2023, contracts that existed in the game prior to 4.0, usage of the EPTU to test features that were scheduled for 4.0, and some obviously needed features that would improve the current content that is driving some players absolutely nuts. With all that, maybe you wouldn't have guessed then that they are actually having their best year of funding ever. Star Citizen is not a particularly popular game in the overall industry. It's still relatively unknown outside of the surface level comments sections you'll come across. Its community is still in a bit of a bubble, and at possibly $150 million this year, it actually doesn't make that much money compared to the heavyweights in the live service games industry. That being said, 2025 earnings for the company are up about 37% year to date, and new accounts being added are up slightly from last year as well. While CIG doesn't report on player numbers regularly, and I don't think this is the best year of concurrent players they've ever had, they are faring fairly well for a year when Star Citizen is kinda on the back burner. But the community is a bit off. While the online side of any gaming community is the minority of the overall player base, you can still gather some data from them. I release a poll on my YouTube channel gauging the enjoyment of my own community surrounding Star Citizen every month since October of 2024. We covered the ongoing results of this poll on a video I released not too long ago over on Space Tomato 2, you can click here to watch. But what it showed us is that some not insignificant amount of the community is swinging pretty wildly in their happiness levels regarding what CIG is doing. While that is to be expected, just judging by the average attention span in any part of humanity at this point, I do think the volatility of the community has been on full show this year unlike before. With so many updates coming out, so many ships and weird funding maneuvers occurring throughout the year, there is more to play, but there's also more to discuss, more to analyze with magnifying glass, more to criticize for relying on incomplete features, more to complain about because there's more slipping through the cracks. Old locations can't be maintained as well as they should for a game releasing content as if it were fully released. New vehicles are sometimes released unfinished and incomplete, and critical parts of the game's content releases can sit for weeks, months, or indefinitely with problems that make many players try them once and never again. I'm looking at you, Wicklow items getting wiped between updates. At the beginning of this year, I posited that a year of less features and more content would be interesting to see, but players would eventually be asking for more features again. And while I think tech debt is also part of that question, I have no doubt that better quantum travel, proper party and looking for group tools, base building, crafting, scanning and radar, engineering, and a proper reputation system would galvanize the community like never before. But CIG doesn't currently have the manpower to deliver on or even give us tangible updates on the progress of those features outside of the monthly text reports we get. These are the systems that create a healthy game environment. New ships, flashy trailers of new locations, and regular content drops every month will, of course, keep earnings high, but there's no knowing what a few quality, well-rounded updates might have resulted in over the same course of time with less ships actually released, other than less attention on the game. Which, going back to that letter at the beginning of the year, did seem to be what their ultimate goal was for Star Citizen at least. There is a feeling among some that Star Citizen isn't going anywhere. In fact, this recent tweet I saw kind of encaptures that. If you can't progress the game in developing, why are you adding ship upon ship? And these kinds of questions are missing, that they are progressing with the game in development, it's just not as much the one that they're playing. There is a feeling among some that Star Citizen isn't going anywhere, which I do disagree with entirely, while still acknowledging things aren't moving along like they feel they should, based on recent messaging from CIG. And it's a palpable feeling in a year when server meshing was just released and is now stable, that elevators for the most part are no longer murdering players, which is progress? I've noticed that AI are not really T-posing anywhere but are actually responding to us. I've noticed that population counts in shards have grown 600%. For combat-focused players, there's a multitude of options now. And content for a lot of the game is actually pretty playable compared to before. But that doesn't mean things aren't pretty broken in some places. And whether it is just a feeling or not, I don't believe it's great for new players. But I could argue, when has Star Citizen ever been? There's more to be done in game right now than ever before, but as always, CIG has set the expectations for the players, and at this point in the year, many are still waiting to be convinced of the year of EPTU and playability. And don't mistake one reason for being the sole reason of this year. Squadron 42 is expected to come out next year, so they obviously have to focus a lot on developing that. But CIG is also going to want a playable MMO for any players who want to try more after the credits roll. If this year is spent getting all the systems in place for CIG to start hosting an unstable EPTU branch next to a stable PU branch of Star Citizen that can capture players coming from Squadron 42, then I think it'll be worth it. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this segment, there's a lot of short-term emotion involved here. If CIG can impress in these final months of the year, deliver some feature testing, deliver some optimizations, and tidy up the ship launches, I think things will be looking good for them and the community going into the new year. But right now, things are shaky, and there are still some other moves CIG could make to win over the community in the short term, in my own opinion. I know I called this an open secret for CIG, but if you're watching this video, depending on how far it reaches into our little community, you probably already know there is such a focus on Squadron 42. But I still see many situations where players are questioning the progress of Star Citizen, wondering why it's not moving faster, and at this point, I don't think there is much else to point to. Star Citizen in 2025 so far has been a mixed bag, with reasonable progress in some areas, but virtually complete silence in others. Not everything can be explained away by the heightened focus on Squadron 42. A ton of the work going into that game does benefit Star Citizen, but it's work that players aren't really hearing about, and that can make a gamer antsy. I'm actually feeling good about Star Citizen's future if Squadron 42 is a good game, but I can see the effect this year has had on the community, and I do wonder how long CIG plans to keep up like this. Star Citizen is an important game, and eventually it's going to start accelerating in its own development with more interesting features and content. Will CIG be able to channel all the money they're making this year into the most efficient decisions for both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen? That's an important question, because next year, it either all comes together or it all falls apart, depending on Squadron 42, because that is their immediate priority. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. I'm sure this will not be a controversial topic at all, and civility will reign supreme. Thank you for watching this video all the way until the end. I hope you learned something new, and I'll catch you in the next.